You're listening to the Dyslexia and Me podcast. I'm your host, Laura Gowers, a global dyslexia assessor, coach and strategist, and former Senko with over 23 years in education. This podcast is a space for honest, real-life conversations about dyslexia, the late discoveries, the relief, the frustration, and the clarity that comes from finally understanding how your brain works. Join me and my expert guests for real conversations that matter. This is Dyslexia and Me. Today, I'm joined by Rose Gibson, a Yorkshire-based entrepreneur, mum of 3 and founder of Baby Beats, a national franchise supporting women with creating truly family-friendly businesses. Rose is also the author of the Amazon bestseller I'm Fine, The Truth About Becoming a Mum, a powerful and honest exploration of the emotional realities of becoming a mum. What makes Rose's story particularly important for this conversation is her experience of being diagnosed with dyslexia as a child, going out of the classroom for separate English lessons, doing different work in the classroom, and the impact that this had on her confidence. This is a conversation about dyslexia, identity, motherhood, and resilience. Hello, Rose, and welcome to this podcast, and thank you so much for joining me today.
Well, thank you for having me.
It's really great to catch up with you, and I'm excited to ask these questions to you. So can you start by telling us a little about your childhood experience of being diagnosed with dyslexia and what school looked like for you at that time?
I don't think I was actually aware that I was classed as a dyslexic child until I was actually in high school. But what used to happen in our sort of junior school, and I was quite aware from being sort of year 3, which I think is about 6 or 7, is that a small group of us would get taken out of class, would get taken out when there was English, and we would get taken into like a smaller, there was like a dedicated teacher for, children that were maybe struggling a little bit with language, with spelling, with reading. And predominantly for me, I hated reading and I hated spelling, and it never made sense in my head. I couldn't get my head around it. So the school life was generally fine. It was just I was taken out of our mainstream classes in this smaller group to support additionally with sort of the needs that this group had in terms of English.
So how did going out sort of make you feel as a child, both academically and emotionally?
I don't think it had a massive negative effect. I think it came from a place of I was very aware that I needed additional support, and that was why I was going out with these other children. I think it probably had the opposite. It made me feel quite a little bit special, maybe, to be taken out into this special group, this really nice room that you were never allowed in. And I don't think it ever highlighted it for me within that instance of being something that made me different and was a negative thing. It felt like quite a natural, okay, they're just trying to help me with this. And the teacher was so lovely. Like, she was the nicest person. So it was really nice to have that intimate time with her.
So was there a moment later in your life where you kind of began to question how your dyslexia had been handled at school, and kind of what triggered that reflection that you might have had?
I think when I found that it was different, it was within the mainstream classes. I would be given different work. So I think to some extent getting taken out and given different work was okay because I felt like I was made special, and it was like this, let's go into this special room. It was all nice. But when you were in the main classroom and you were doing certain things, it's like, oh no, you can't do that. You're going to do this paper instead. And that highlighted it quite a lot for me that, I couldn't do that work. I couldn't do the same work as the other children as my friends. Whereas academically across the board, I wasn't a child that was, really far behind on anything else. It was spelling for me. It was terrible. And I really hated reading. I remember my mum trying to force me to read. And I was like, I don't want to read. I want to go out and play in the mud and like run around. So reading was a real struggle. And I found that was the point where I was like, okay, so why can't I do that? Like, what is it that's stopping me? And it almost ingrained into me a little bit that I can't do that. I can't do the same as everybody else. I need to do something different. And then heading up to sort of GCSEs, I worked really hard to get myself into set 1s because I'm stubborn and competitive. And I was like, I'm not being in a lower set. My sister's in a higher set. So I'm going to really work to get up to those, to get into the sets, the higher sets. And I actually did get an A in English So I know I'd worked really hard, but one of the big things that did hold me back was the fact that I couldn't spell, and I could reread things over and over again and I still wouldn't see the mistake that was there.
Yeah. So do you still have the same difficulties now with spelling, or have you just found so many workarounds that it's kind of much more comfortable for you now?
Do you know, it's comfortable for me now because we've got technology on our side. That is the big difference. So when I was at school, everything was you wrote it down and we didn't really type. I mean, we went into a computer room, I think like once a term, and it was the biggest like, oh, you get to touch a computer. So I think now having technology, whenever I type something, it corrects it for me, or it's so obvious that there's a mistake there. We are really blessed with that. But if I was to sit and write, I would really have to think about it. My children will say to me, I've got 3, how do I spell this? And I have to go, right, hang on a minute. Let me imagine it in my head. Let me physically imagine the words in the right order. And a lot of the time, my husband will be like, no, that's the wrong way around. And I have to go, okay, you do it then.
Yeah, I think that with the assistive technologies that we've got nowadays, we can do things so much easier, can't we? With AI or all the spell checks that are available, all the speech to text and text to speech. So I think we are living in a time now where we can find these workarounds, which is only going to be beneficial for every dyslexic person. And I guess it's teaching the children now how to use that assistive technology, because I'm not entirely sure whether schools are able to use it as much as we do as adults.
Yeah. And it's one of those things that I know that I rely on it massively. And if somebody took that off me, then I can imagine I would struggle again and I'd lose that confidence that I have with writing now. I don't have the anxiety that when I first started out in business, and I knew that I had to start writing blogs, I knew I had to start writing articles, I knew I had to put myself out there into the online space to get my brand seen. I did really struggle with that, and I struggled with putting my thoughts down into text because I was like, well, I can't do that. Like, I've always been told that I couldn't do what everyone else was doing. I have to do the simpler stuff. So putting yourself out there, if somebody took away all the tools that we've got now, I would really struggle, I think, to be able to put everything down in a way that I felt reflected my thoughts and reflected what I wanted to say.
Yeah, completely agree. So, I mean, how did becoming a mum yourself change your view on your own childhood experiences with learning and education?
I think that as I've got children now, and they are at a variety of ages, my oldest is almost at GCSEs, my youngest is still in junior school. And I think I'm at the approach where every child is so different. And there's such a massive scale of difference between my eldest and my youngest and my middle child that they all learn in such different ways. We all learn creatively, or we learn, listening or doing, or there's so many different ways to learn. I'm trying to really feed that in to their education as well and what we do with them. Because I know that I have a big thing about spelling tests, that it's just a memory test for my children. I remember them, sort of school really pushing that they want to get them 10 out of 10 on the spelling tests. And I would ask them, what does this word mean? And they go, I don't know. I say, so why are we learning words that you don't understand? You just need to learn them. And then we'd learn them one week and I would test them the week after that, once we've got the new spellings in there, and say, can you remember that word from the week before? How do you spell that? And they go, oh, I don't know. So for me, it was just a memory test. It was just a tick box exercise of going, okay, we need to show that these children can spell these words, whereas they're not understanding the meaning of them and the context of them. I've gone off on a tangent for the question that you asked me. I've completely forgotten what it was. But when I started to read more and to understand words within a text, within the context, within how they were actually structured in a sentence, it really helped with my spelling and my development of language, because I could understand where to put it within a sentence structure and not just memorizing the spelling of a word, because for me that didn't make sense at all.
That's such a valid point. And I think so many parents really struggle with their spellings, learning the spellings that the children try and do at school. And then they might get them one week in their test, and then the following week, like you say, they've just forgotten them. You've written a book, which is incredibly honest and raw. Do you think dyslexia shaped the way that you tell stories and communicate emotionally? And how was the process of physically writing the book for you?
So The whole process, it was never intended to be a book, in all honesty. So it started out as a number of freebies that we gave out to new mums, talking from every sort of topic that comes when you're a new mum, the change in the identity, mum guilt, your relationship changes, how your body changes. And these were all little freebies that we'd give out to our audience, women that would come into our classes. And they were really put down in a way that I would do it chatting to a friend. So, my friends kind of come to me like, oh, what do you think about this? And it was just advice that I would give out to people in a really judgmental way, in an open way where they can reflect on themselves. And people love them. And we got loads of feedback to say, these are great. Like, can you do more? And I'm a big journaler. I love scribbling things down. There's paper all over my office. So I started to put little worksheets to go with each, what they were modules, to help women. And as these got bigger, it just expanded and we started to put them together. And then I thought, right, I'm going to try and just piece them together a little bit more and see how they feel, see how it looks. And then I had more topics and I spoke to more women. And so I did a bit more research to think, actually, what are they needing? What do they need support with? And that really built up to this point where I thought, you know what, I could put this in a book. And I did sit with it for a long time and think, I can't write a book. I'm bad at English. I'm not I was never meant to put anything out there into the world of any value like this. But then I actually sent the manuscript to my mum, who, she's proofread so many things of mine. She has done hours and hours of reading my stuff and rewriting it and giving me pointers and spelling because she's brilliant at English. And I sent it to her and I said, I just want your honest opinion. Like, what do you think? Do you think it's got any value to it? Do you think women are going to, love it? Or are they going to just think, oh, it's just this woman writing down her thoughts? And she sent me a message back and she's like, it's amazing. She's like, this is what women need. Yes, we need to tweak a little bit. We need to edit it to make it fit right. But I really went from the tone of conversational because the way that I write is very much how I would speak. And I wanted it to come across as personable as well. And I think my experience being a child and thinking for all these years, oh, you're dyslexic, you can't do that. This is out of your realms. Actually, when I put it into a personable way, I'm like, actually, I can do that.
Yeah. And it's a best-selling book, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Yes, which is amazing. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
How long did it take you? How long was the actual process to write that?
The initial sort of doing the gifts that we gave out, the modules, I was doing them for about a year. So building them up slowly. And then once I got to a point where I was like, okay, I'm going to put this into a book, and I made that decision, adding the extra chapters on and getting it to publish was about 6 months. I had a really great publisher who I could bounce ideas off as well. And I think that's a really important tool to have. And I didn't go down having an editor, which is something that I did contemplate for quite a while and going, do I need someone else to look at it? But I didn't want my voice and my tone to be taken from it. And, that was hard. The easiest part was probably writing it because I could brain dump everything. And that was quite quick just to write it all down and get it all onto paper. It was the editing side that I found really difficult because I was reading it exactly how I would have done as a child and just skimming it and thinking that what was on paper was what I wanted to say. Whereas when someone else read it, they're like, that doesn't make sense. And in my, my head, when I've read it 4 times, I'm like, it does make sense. So the editing stage was the hardest part for me. It was going back over, making sure it actually delivered the lines how I wanted them to be delivered. The spelling, the grammar. Wow, I've never gone in so many knots over where commas should be and apostrophes, and the English language is really difficult for anybody. And I think just having that extra sort of query on top was quite a lot.
So what role did writing play in your reframing of your dyslexia experience, kind of especially given the messages that you may have received about literacy as a young child?
I don't feel like it holds me back at all now. I think I did do. And I think I would be very tentative in putting things out there. So when we were writing articles and blogs, I wouldn't be as forthcoming and be a bit like, oh, I've kind of done it. Here it is. Whereas I think it's a bit of a therapeutic process for me. It was, no, I can do this. It was very empowering. I'm going to get this out. Like I said, the writing of it is great. If you've got loads and that you want to get on paper, it was empowering, and it was going, actually, no, I can do this. And nothing that's been labelled, that label that's been put on you doesn't have to hold you back. And there is tools out there to support you with that. I'm still not the best speller in the world. I still don't always see mistakes, but that doesn't mean that I can't put something out into the world that's got a lot of value to it.
Now, as the founder of Baby Beats, you've built a hugely successful values-led business. How has dyslexia influenced the way that you lead, create, or support others within your business network?
So I do believe, like I said before, that everybody learns really differently. And we've got franchisees underneath us, women that are building their own businesses. And I really believe that the one way that I do something will not be the same for another woman that's building her business. We all need things in a lot of different formats in order to relate to them, in order to absorb them, in order to implement them. So we try and give things in as many formats as we can. So, like, for example, our training, we've got videos, we've then got like PDFs. We've got worksheets. So there's all different mediums that can be used in order to help you learn. And I do think that's one thing that taught me from it, that I don't learn things in the same way as other people necessarily, especially when it comes to language and retaining information. I know that I'm a very practical person. I need to go out there and do it, and I need to go over it, and then I need to teach somebody else it, and then it's really cemented in me. So we try and provide as many different resources in as many different formats as possible, just to help people to find the best way that works for them.
And I think that being a dyslexic founder, such an important element is that understanding that everybody does learn differently, and being able to actually ideas into different format can be hugely beneficial. And I think sometimes maybe neurotypical adults might not necessarily quite grasp that, the need for that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And we do put things out there and we'll say, how did you find that? Did you manage to work around that? And they were like, oh, I couldn't work with the spreadsheet. But then we put it into, like a Canva form or a PDF. And it's like, okay, that makes sense now. So we do try and provide as many different things as we can, different resources.
Yeah. So for parents listening who have a child with dyslexia, is there anything that you wish that schools had done differently for you when you were younger, that you could make them aware of so that they can kind of keep a track of what's going on?
I would say, if you've got a child, I mean, I know my middle child does struggle the same as I do. I see a lot of me in him and the way that he, formats his words and his letters and his spelling. And I think it's just understanding that that's okay, and to go patiently with it and not to, get angry about the fact that, well, why can't you learn that? Why can't you remember that? We've been over that. We've done this spelling. I remember that a lot with spelling tests at school, because we used to do the whole 10 spellings a week, and I could just never get it. And then, there would be other children that would get sort of a bag of sweets if they got 10 out of 10. And I was like, there's no chance I'm getting 10 out of 10. If I get 2 out of 10, I'll be happy with that. So with my children, we do the 7 out of 10 policy, that we're never ever in life going to be 100% all of the time of everything, and expecting that of our children. The expectations is so high. We're never 100% on anything. And this is not just on spelling, this is anything. If they go from 70% upwards, we celebrate that, because that's a really good achievement. And always aiming for 100% or 10 out of 10, it's not always sustainable. And if you can't, if you make a mistake, which we do as human beings, and teaching children that that's okay to make a mistake, even in a test environment, it's going to happen. Is it that we're building them up to these expectations that are unrealistic to keep at a really high level? So just working at the 7 out of 10 capacity is something that works really well for us. And I think it's, it's something just to consider as well. If you are doing the sort of spelling test 10 out of 10, that actually 8's good, 9's good, 7's good.
Love that idea, 7 out of 10. That's really important. And it's so hard sometimes to really think not to compare, especially if maybe your eldest child didn't necessarily have any difficulties at all, and on the surface it looked pretty plain sailing, but then you have another child and you can see, well, he did this when he was 5. Why is he now not doing it? So I think it is really hard as a parent to make sure that you don't compare. And also, when you hear your child talking about what their friends can do, making sure that you don't compare that way as well.
Yeah, I mean, we're all individual, aren't we, at every single point of our life. I think the system as well at the moment with children is that they are all graded, they are all put into different statistics, and it's looking at them as a whole person as well, rather than just that number of 8 out of 10 or 9 out of 10, and seeing where they are as as a whole, and where they need support, and what sort of resources they need to support them.
definitely. So what would you say to an adult who was diagnosed as a child and is only now sort of realising just how deeply those early experiences affected them?
Oh, that's a really tricky question. I think it would be, like I said to you before, I love writing things down. I love journaling. I love doodling. And I think for me, it would be really looking back at what specific points there were. For me personally, it wasn't being taken out of the room. Like I said, that was kind of a special thing. But actually, it was not being able to do the same work as somebody else. What implications that has? How does that make me feel now? And what's holding me back from, from moving forward? Is it actually inhibiting my skill set, my business, whatever it is that I'm trying to do? And really to unpick that as well. I've done a lot of NLP coaching just to kind of understand myself. And I think that's, putting value on your own needs is really important. That's a big thing that I've learned, just to empower yourself and that you can do these things. I would start there. I'd start right at the beginning and go, what is it actually that affected me from this and how is that affecting me now?
That's brilliant advice. So if there was one thing you'd want listeners to take away from your story about dyslexia, motherhood and success, what would that be?
You can literally do anything. You can do anything that you set your mind to. And I say this all the time. If people follow us on social media, if they follow us online, there is nothing special about me at all. I always say that I am just a normal person, a normal mum of 3. The only difference is that I believe that I can do anything. I believe that I could publish a book and I wanted it to get to Amazon bestseller. And I am so stubborn that I was like, that is not going to happen. I'm going to make that happen. And I do believe that if you have that belief in yourself for whatever it is, as long as you put the energy behind it and as long as you put everything that you've got into it, there is nothing that can stop you. Whether it's the label of dyslexia, whether it's neurodiverse, whether it's any additional needs you've got, nothing can stop you from doing anything. It's only in your head that'll stop you from doing it.
Excellent advice. So finally, can you tell listeners how they can connect with you?
Yeah, so you can find us on pretty much every social media platform there is. And you can find us at Baby Beats UK, so BABYBEATS. You can find Rose Gibson as well, and that's my name. And then if you head across to Amazon, you can find our book, which is called I'm Fine, The Truth About Becoming a Mum That Nobody Warned You About, and that is available on Amazon.
Brilliant. Well, it's been lovely talking to you, Rose. Thank you so much for joining me.
No, thank you for having me.
Hope that you've enjoyed listening to Rose's story. All of her links are in the show notes, so go and check her out. Thank you to everyone that's tuned into today's episode. Please don't forget to rate, review and subscribe to the podcast, and I look forward to seeing you next time.